This pattern comes from Steve Good, and it's Happy Mother's Day. There are two versions of it. There's a male and a female, so a boy or man saying Happy Mother's Day, a girl or woman saying Happy Mother's Day. The pattern calls for 1/4-inch material for the picture of the mother and child. My supplier doesn't stock anything that thin in the width needed for this, and I can only resaw to just under 6 inches wide on my bandsaw. I have 1/2-inch oak on hand, but I didn't want to turn half of it into sawdust, so I decided to use 1/4-inch Baltic birch plywood. If you're going to make this as a gift for your mother, you'll obviously only need to make one, but since I'm making these for resale, I'm going to make two at a time by stack cutting. I used my table saw to cut rectangles a little larger than needed from a sheet of 60 by 60 plywood. Then I placed one down on my counter, cut 2 strips of double-sided tape, and attached a second plywood rectangle carefully to the top. Now I can cut two identical pieces at once, cutting my labor time in half. I use scroll saw tape to attach the pattern to the top piece of plywood, but you can use whatever method works best for you. If you're new to scroll sawing, you should watch my video on 9 methods to attach scroll saw patterns to wood. I'll leave a link on screen and in the description. I drilled all the pilot holes at my drill press. There were a bunch of them. You should always make the interior cuts first, but other than that, it doesn't matter where you start. I decided to begin with the lettering that said Happy Mother's Day at the bottom. The letters are going to be the most difficult part of this pattern to cut. They contain lots of 90-degree turns, and cutting them accurately takes skill. Because they are letters and instantly recognizable as such, if they're cut sloppily, it will detract from the look of the piece. The letters are bigger than those I have cut on other patterns, but for a novice on the scroll saw, they will likely seem to be small. And if you go just a tiny bit past the cut line, there are places where this would cause the middle part of the letter to fall out. This could ruin the entire piece. I used a 5/64 drill bit to make the pilot holes, and I'm using a number 5 Vegas modified geometry blade to cut this, since I'm stack cutting a 1/2-inch thickness. If I was cutting 1/4-inch piece, I would use a number 3 blade. If you're new to scroll sawing, you should watch my video on blade size choice. I'll leave links as I did before. The letter H was a good place to start because it has so many 90-degree turns, and it gives me an opportunity to explain how to make these cuts. I drilled the pilot hole in the H near the crossbar, and after threading the blade through and tightening the upper clamp, I cut to one of the lines crossing the H. This was a short trip, so when I arrived at the end of the line, I needed to make a 90-degree turn. Here's how I consistently make sharp, crisp 90-degree turns. I cut from the pilot hole to one of the corners, then back off the pressure slightly on the blade so it's no longer cutting. Then I pivot the workpiece until it's facing in the direction I want to cut next and start cutting again. I follow the line to the next corner and then repeat the process. I've been doing this for years and the process has become routine to me, but if you're new to scroll sawing, it will take some practice. If you have a scroll saw with a variable speed control, you may want to start at a lower speed. The blade is less aggressive when it's moving slower, and it will give you more time to make the swivel at each turn. Plus, the blade is less likely to nibble away material on the corner if you don't make the turn sharply enough at first. The letter A had one of those places where you have to be careful to cut within the lines, or else the triangle at the top can fall out and leave you with a sloppy-looking letter at best and a ruined project at worst. Now we come to the 2 P's in a row, which presents the same problem. As I've already mentioned, the letters on this project are bigger than many I have done, but they still require careful cutting. There are 2 pilot holes for each P, and I'll start cutting with the upright part of the P. This is a matter of making 4 90-degree turns, and I've already described how to do that. One thing I didn't mention yet was that when I cut letters, I try to stay on the inside of the line rather than cut right on top of it, as I do for most shapes. This serves to leave a minuscule larger amount of space in between the letters, giving a larger margin for error in case any one cut goes a little astray. After cutting the column on the left side of the P, I cut the curved part on the right. I cut from the pilot hole to the corner, as usual, and make the turn normally, but I was more careful not to go outside the line to keep the center of the blade from falling out. This is the place where I sometimes slow the blade down if the cut is too aggressive. But a number 5 blade on 1/2 inch material is at the high end of where I would use that blade, so this cut worked out at full speed. Okay, there we are. Happy Mother's Day. The difficult part at the bottom all done. And we'll call it a night and come back and do the rest of those cuts tomorrow. It's been about 23 hours since I set this aside, but I'm finally back. Since I started with the Happy Mother's Day letters at the bottom, I worked my way up to do the other cuts. After a few cuts, I noticed the blade was getting dull, so I tossed it and replaced it with a fresh blade. It's normal for scroll saw blades to wear and need replacement. That's why they're usually sold in packages of 12 in retail stores. I purchased my blades from Bearwood Supply, and since I'm running a business, I purchased 12 dozen or more at a time for the price break. I'll leave a link to the Bearwood's website in the description in case you need to stock up on blades. This is an affiliate link, so I will receive a commission on any purchases you make. It cuts to form what I would call accents for the mother and son, all fairly large by scroll saw pattern standards. They're mostly curved, so all you need to do is follow the lines. However, there are some areas with sharp points on one or more sides. I'll explain how I cut those next. I obviously start at the pilot hole, and sometimes I will cut to one of the lines and follow that to the place where it comes to a point. If the pilot hole is near the point, I'll just cut straight to the point. Either way, now my blade is at a point and there's no room to make a turn. I back the blade to the pilot hole, swivel the workpiece 180 degrees, and back it to the point along the line I already cut. But now the blade is facing out and I can cut down either side of the line, forming the piece I want to cut out and remove. Now I cut along the line to the point at the other side of the cut. Once I get there, since I don't have enough room to make the turn without making that point a curve, I back the blade up to the pilot hole, then cut along the line on the other side until I get back to the point once again. And now I have a sharp, crisp point at either end of the cut. An alternate method is to cut from the pilot hole to the place I need a sharp point. Rather than backing up all the way to the pilot hole, I back up just a little bit and use the waist area to maneuver the blade to the corner from the opposite side. It's just a matter of deciding what will work best inside each shape. The inside cuts are all complete, and you can start to see what this piece will look like when it is done. The outside cut is just one long line from the bottom of the pattern at one side to the bottom at the other side. The turns for the boy's hair are a little close together, but they are curved and don't have sharp points. This is the type of area where if you're a little bit off the line, no one will never know as long as the curve looks natural. I started to feel excess vibration as I was cutting, and I should have stopped then. You can probably tell from the video that I was startled when the blade came loose from the lower blade holder. I slowed the video down so you could see this happen more clearly. You can't see the blade come loose from the lower blade holder, but you can see the tightening lever jump as the tension on the blade is removed by the blade coming out of the lower blade holder. The blade was badly bent during the process. As I already mentioned, I should have noted something was wrong and reacted sooner. It's no big deal, though. I just had to toss the blade sooner than would have been necessary. Since that blade was kaput, every once in a while my German comes back to me, I replaced it and then continued to cut. Fortunately, the place I left off wasn't far from an edge, so it was easy to start at the edge and cut to where I left off, then resume the cut around the outside. The fact that the blade was able to work itself loose from the lower blade holder tells you how much torque is being put on the blade by all those turns. The blade coming loose was not the fault of the blade holder either. It's just finger tightened, and I know my hands are not as strong as they used to be, along with the rest of my body. Getting old is not for the faint-hearted. The outside cut is done, and I toss the waste pieces into the basket I keep next to the scroll saw. I pulled off the pattern, and it shows one of the reasons I like scroll saw tape so much. It came off in one piece. I was a little nervous pulling the two pieces apart, hoping the double-sided tape wasn't too strong and wouldn't cause any pieces to break. The two pieces came apart easily, but because there were a lot of inside cuts, I had to spend a little time removing pieces of tape from in between cuts. I'd just cut my fingernails, so getting under the edge of the tape presented a bit of a challenge. The fronts are done. Now it's time to move on to making the backer. The plan showed 1/2 inch material for the backer. Since the front was made from a light-colored Baltic birch plywood, I wanted a darker wood for the backer. I looked through my stock and found some beautiful sapele. It has a rich brown color, which the finish will bring out nicely. I still had a number 5 blade in the saw from cutting the plywood fronts. Since I generally use a number 5 blade on up to 1/2 inch thicknesses, I left that blade in the saw. The plywood's cross grains and glue didn't seem to dull the blade appreciably, and it was still sharp enough to use for the final cut. The backer is easy to cut. You just start at the bottom of one side and follow the line all the way around to the bottom on the other side. There are no sharp points at all, just a few curves that are somewhat close together for the hair on the boy and his mother. This did not take long at all. When you're gluing two solid pieces together, you usually put glue on both of them, but that's not what I'll do here. Because there are all those cutouts on the front where the backer is going to show through, you don't want to put glue directly on the backer. If you do, when it dries, it will be clear, but the finish won't stick to any area that is covered in dried glue. Therefore, I am only going to put glue on the back of the front piece with all the cuts in it. I make many projects like this where I need to put glue on small parts or spaces. I have found that the small tip on an Elmer's glue bottle works perfectly for this type of application. When the bottle gets low, I fill it up again from a larger bottle. I use a lot of glue, and I buy it in gallon bottles and transfer it to medium and small size bottles as their content is used up. The white glue is water soluble, so I use my finger to spread it around. It's important to get glue to the outside of pieces like this to avoid edges separating from the backer. It would be difficult to clamp anywhere but the edges of this piece, so I'm going to use the method I frequently use for projects like this. I have a piece of MDF on top of the workbench, and I put a sheet of wax paper over that to prevent any glue squeeze-out from gluing the back of the MDF. I put another sheet of wax paper on top, place a piece of plywood over that, and then some weight on top of the upper piece of plywood. You could use clamps instead, but the weight has always worked fine for me. Once the glue dries, I'll take this into my finishing room where I'll use my homemade spray booth to give the project several coats of warm satin spray polyurethane. Here are the completed Mother's Day gifts. The procedure was exactly the same for the girl version as for the boy version, so I didn't record making that one. I wouldn't consider this an absolute beginner project because of the skill it will take to cut the letters accurately, but it is a great skill builder project for someone with a little experience. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and if you have any comments, I would appreciate reading them. I already suggested 2 more videos to watch near the beginning of this project, and there will be another suggestion on the screen now. I'll see you in the next video.